Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. My name is Brandon, and I'm going to be doing my informative speech for my oral communication course at the University of Laverne. Today, I'm going to talk to you about a subject that's swiftly growing in the technology and business sector, and that is data ethics. My presentation is data ethics. What is it and why is it important? I know ethics can be a dry subject, but it is very important, so I'll do my best to make this as interesting as possible. So without further ado, let's dive into data ethics by me, Brandon Medina. So the topics of discussion today are going to be an introduction. We're going to talk about what are data ethics. We're going to talk about why data ethics are important. I'm going to give an example of some ethics incidents, principles of data ethics, and then we're going to highlight the key points and conclusion. These are my references. These are the sources that I used for my presentation. An introduction about myself. My name is Brandon L. Medina. I was a U.S. Navy veteran. I am a U.S. Navy veteran, of 9 years. I worked in the technology field while I served. I was a sonar technician. I dealt with a lot of mechanical and electrical equipment, but also computers. I completed a professional certificate with Google for data analytics, where they highlighted a lot on data ethics. And I attend the University of Laverne. I'm majoring in IT, and I'm currently employed as an IT support specialist at a STEM-based nonprofit here in Southern California. So what are data ethics? Data ethics are guidelines or well-founded standards of right and wrong that govern how an organization handles how customer data is collected, shared, and most importantly, used. So basically, what does that mean? Data ethics is just the guidelines on how a business should use personal information that's collected from their customers. And why are data ethics important? So data science and analytics are a largely emerging field in the business industry. To give you some examples of just the pure amount of data that's being processed now, Google alone is visited approximately 89 billion times a month. Google processes over 8.5 billion searches a day. 63% of the searches are conducted on mobile devices, and 46% of the searches are for e-commerce. This is an astounding amount of data when you consider location services, credit card information, and other personal information that's being processed as a result from Google alone. So just kind of going back to those statistics. Google processes 8.5 billion searches a day. Anything you search on Google is tracked, it's stored. 63% of those searches are conducted on mobile devices. So location services of where you're searching from are all collected, and 46% are for e-commerce. So your name, address, for shipping, your credit card information, all of that is stored. That is just a vast amount of data that's being processed every day. And then again, 89 billion times a month. So the reason that data ethics are so important is because now, with the ease of access of phones and the internet, there's just an incredible amount of data being processed, and businesses all over are storing and using this data. And it's kind of hard to grasp where your information is going, where your information is stored, and what it's used for. So data ethics kind of dives into that subject of, well, what is a company using your information for? What should they be using your information for? And just kind of keeping the customer safe. So I'm going to give an example of a breach of ethics. First, we're going to talk about what is an ethics or a data breach. A data breach is when information is taken or stolen from an organization's systems without the knowledge of the owner of the system or data. So it could be, for example, your, let's say, bank information maybe gets hacked and stolen. That is a data breach. Data breach, like it said in the definition, it could be done with the knowledge of the organization and without yours or without either. Maybe the organization doesn't even know that they had data stolen. Maybe they do know, but they haven't informed you. It's still a data breach. So what is an ethics breach? A breach in ethics can mean a varying number of things depending on the field. When talking about an ethics breach, typically when an organization allows a leak of customer data due to lack of security measures, or they sell the customer's data without consent, or when the customer has unknowingly given consent. So it doesn't just have to be that you have no idea that they're going to be selling your information. You can have an idea because you signed the user terms. And I know a lot of people don't actually go through all of that. And we'll kind of get into that later when we get into the principles of data ethics. So an example of a breach of ethics. In 2021, Facebook was hacked and personal information was stolen for over 500 million users. This information contained names, birth dates, phone numbers, addresses, and email addresses. And this data was posted to hacking forums, and it's open for use. Anybody with basic data skills are able to pull up all of this information. And this affected people from over 100 countries. That is a huge breach of ethics because signing up for Facebook, you're trusting them with your personal information because you're using it as a social media platform. But this isn't even the first time that there's been a breach in data for Facebook. So Facebook was found in the past to be in violation of users' privacy when it was discovered that the site was collecting users' data and data from users' friends and allowing outside organizations to collect that from them and sell it. So by allowing some companies to harvest data, it led to the leak of 87 million users' data, which was used by foreign agencies to target users in the 2016 election. Allowing some companies to collect the data was an ethical dilemma because the users were not made aware of the collection or asked to participate in the collection. It was just once you signed up for Facebook, you were automatically opted in. And after that, the lack of oversight allowed the data to be sold to other companies. So you signed up for Facebook, you were automatically opted in, your data was collected, Facebook allowed other organizations to come in and collect that data from them, and there was no oversight on that. So the companies that came into Facebook and collected their data sold it from there. So your data was just being changed hand after hand, and the user had no idea. On top of that, once the leak was discovered, the company made fixes to the issue of personal data leaks, but they intentionally made opt-in the option when signing up for the site. They made restricting data usages convoluted, and they intentionally made privacy policies complicated and hard to understand. So they were caught. They were supposed to make fixes to their process. That way your data wouldn't be sold. Their solution to that was just kind of complicating the process for you to opt out of that sort of thing, unfortunately. Principles of ethics. So now we're going to go in some considerations that organizations should have when they're dealing with customer data. For all businesses to navigate the ethics behind collecting data from their customers, there are guidelines for them to follow, also known as principles of ethics. The first one is ownership. The second is transparency. The third is privacy. And the fourth is intention. And I'm going to go into all four of those here. Ownership. Ownership refers to the fact that the customer has the ultimate ownership over their data. Just because a customer enters their address, phone number, or name into the system does not give the organization ownership over the information. As a result, any sale containing the customer's personal information is unethical. So just because you went and you signed up for Facebook, it did not give Facebook the ownership of your name, where your address is, or your photos. So any sale of that information is unethical on behalf of Facebook. Same thing for Amazon. You put in your credit card information and you're purchasing. Any breach in that data that takes your credit card information is unethical, and it is the organization's responsibility to deal with that. Transparency. Transparency refers to the collection of personal data as well. In addition to understanding that data does not belong to the organization has a duty to inform their customer that the data is being collected, how it's being collected, how it's stored, and how it's used. However, as time progresses, businesses also fall into the trend of lying by omission through deceptive web designs, like enlarging data collection opt-in buttons versus shrinking the opt-out buttons, adding additional steps to opt out, or other methods. So as time goes on, the methods evolve and ethics is a subject that needs to be constantly revisited. So kind of like I talked about in the Facebook example, um, their solution to their data breach was just making user agreements hard to read, opting out, convoluted. So that is deceptive web designs is something that's currently on the rise. It's a poor trend for businesses in e-commerce, unfortunately, but they do have an ethical obligation to be transparent with their customers that they're going to store your name, your address, your credit card information for whatever services they're providing, but they have to understand that they don't own that data and they have an obligation to the customer to tell them what they're keeping and what they're keeping it for. Privacy. Privacy refers to the usage of customers' PII. PII stands for personally identifiable information. That can be a full name, an address, a phone number, a social security number, even a credit card information. Organizations have the ethical duty to safeguard a customer's PII because any leak or sale of this information can be possibly catastrophic for the customer. So PII is a huge ethical responsibility. Not only do organizations have to tell you what they're collecting, but they have the duty to safeguard what they're collecting. Because any leak of information, say my address got out there and it was just posted on the internet, that could be potentially catastrophic for me. So it is a delicate subject for organizations to be collecting and keeping. Intention. Intention is also an important principle to consider because when collecting information from your customer, you need to understand what information is pertinent and what can be omitted. It is unethical to collect data that is unnecessary for the service you are providing because you're putting customer at risk should any potential breach of data occur. So like I talked about with PII, that is a lot of potentially catastrophic data if it should be leaked. Intention is important because you should only be collecting what you need and using it for whatever services is being provided. The organization should not be collecting your social security number if I'm just shopping on Amazon. So that sort of information can be omitted because if they do collect that sort of information, even though it's not required for whatever services is being performed, if there's any sort of leak, again, it leads to catastrophic results for the customer. So I want to highlight again some key points. We talked about data ethics are the guidelines of right and wrong that govern how customer data is handled and used. Data ethics breach is when an organization misuses or allows the spread of customer information. And to avoid any breach in ethics, an organization should always consider data ownership, collection transparency, data privacy, and the intention of use for this information. So that is my presentation. I want to thank you for taking the time to view it and watching this video. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.